We're going to do the pledge. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. Allegiance to thee. We're going to do the, okay. Okay. I'm going to do the roll call. Karen? That's right.
Present.
Angela? No, absent, I'm sorry. Chad is absent, Larry is absent. Ed? Here. Lorraine? Here. Okay. Robina, I'm here as well. Okay. We're now going to do the, are there any citizen comments? Just one time. Okay. And right now, we're going to do the regular agenda, and Kyle's going to do a status update on MEDC city projects.
Who was on in 2014? MEDC. Were you on?
I think it was these three. Yeah.
We just recently got a letter saying that the 2014 debt that the city took out is paid off.
It should have been, yes, sir.
Uh-huh. And do you know what that debt was for? What was that for?
It was for the water line and the sewage to go all the way to 288.
You are correct. It was.
Across the street, and we did the small area for honor.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So there was debt that the city took out that MEDC helped pay for. That I guess is officially ours now. We've gotten it back from the debt. So obviously that's one of the things that DeBello Lakes is tied on to. In order for all of those houses up there to get water and sewer, they're using the line that MEDC paid for. Just recently, the Manvel Town Center put an interconnect for the water line that went under 288 all the way to right in front of Burger King. That line's going to be used in the near future when they get ready. So that was exactly the idea. What is called the Presidio or Mud 30, which is that area that's right on the sort of the northeast corner of 288 and Highway 6, they're going to tie into that line eventually, whenever they get ready to build. Those are some of the things that the MEDC in funding that line or those lines on Highway 6 allowed to happen. So again, very good.
And also, don't think of that as the cost of the interest and doing it then, as opposed to waiting until you had the money and doing it now. The cost of the interest is about this much. The cost of materials and labor has probably gone up this much. So that's a smart use of debt, in my opinion. That's why we did it.
Yes. Yes. As big as we can in order to get it to flow from, remember that's if I remember correctly, it's 8,000 linear feet. So it's a mile and a half. So there's a lot of area that's along that's going to be developed for commercial. I know that Jessica Rodriguez has been working with the developer that's on the south side of Highway 6 at Iowa Lane, sort of between Iowa Lane and Redeemer Church. We've already gotten the construction plans for either a 3 or 4 story hotel, Holiday Inn Express, I think. So again, they're going to be using that line. The thing that y'all put in years ago is now coming to fruition. So there are things that are happening. Some of the other things that we can talk about, and MEDC talked about it before, was the idea of possibly going east on Highway 6. There was a gentleman or a possible developer that had come in and talked to MEDC at the time about some sort of commercial development on Cemetery and 6. Office condominiums it kind of was. But there was a general discussion about the possibility of extending sewer down eastward. Still something that is very valid because we're not going to get commercial development until we get utilities available. We have a water line that goes down to the lumber company, but we don't have any sewer. And as you can no doubt guess, commercial businesses aren't going to want to put in spray fields for septic systems. They're just not going to want to do that. They don't want to use the valuable real estate on Highway 6 to put in an area where they can spray the sewage. Yes, yes. The one behind City Hall was an $800,000 lift station, and that's just the lift station. That's not the pipe to connect it. One of the things that also is going to come into effect is right now the city is working. We've submitted an application to expand the wastewater treatment plant. The Texas Commission on Environmental Quality is reviewing all that. It's probably going to be the end of the year or so before we get it back. But that's a 1 million gallon expansion of our wastewater treatment plant. That's about 3,000 equivalent family connections. About 2,000 of those are already allocated in Blue Water Lakes, in Del Bello Lakes, in Valencia, all of those things. But there's another 1,000 connections that are built into that expansion for the next development, for the next commercial, for the next whatever is coming up. And it's going to be coming up soon. So as you think along Highway 6, that's where that commercial is. But the other thing that the city has in the way of zoning is highway mixed use, and that's up 1128. That's another area that we have water all the way up to the police station, and we have sewer up to the dance studio. And right now, we're going through a design to extend the sewer line all the way up to Dogwood, in that general area, because at Monday night council meeting, the council decided that we're going to build the new police station on the acreage. There's about 7 acres just to the north of the existing police department. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. There is a part of the capital improvement program. It's called the CIP, where we have water line connections. We have one on Tankersley, and we have one on Lewis. We need one eventually on Charlotte, and then one on Dogwood that will tie back into the city's system up in Lakeland. And then the extension of that going down Dogwood is going to tie into the back of Valencia. The school district in October, I think, bought 2 pieces of property from Coastal Bend Land Investments or whatever. The end of Charlotte, there was a 20-acre piece of property that the developer owned, and there was a 50-acre piece of property at the end of Dogwood that the developer owned, and the school district has bought both of those. From what I understand, they're talking about the possibility of a swap with Valencia in order to get the connections on the swap on the end of Charlotte, and then another school site at the end of Dogwood. Nothing's been finalized, but that is where the water line that's going to go down Dogwood is going to tie back into the Valencia subdivision, which is going to have a connection on Pollard Boulevard, which comes in through Blue Water Lakes. And there's already an extension from Del Bello Lakes onto the city's 160 acres. So we got water on Highway 6. We have water going up Iowa Lane, up Pollard, that are both going to connect back into the city center. And then eventually we're going to have connections on Charlotte that go all the way through to Valencia, and on Dogwood that go all the way into the Valencia development. So those are the water line loops. The key is getting water all the way up to Dogwood, and then definitely the sewer all the way up to Dogwood, because then that opens up all of that area for the highway mixed use, which is either residential or commercial uses on 1128. So then we're starting to expand where those commercial developments can go, just by extending water and sewer. So those are some of the things that are going on right now. There's a lot, right? Yeah. It depends on the depth, and it depends on the size of the lift station itself. Like I said, the one behind City Hall, I think is it's either an 8 or a 10-foot wide wet well, and that's about 30 feet deep, 28 feet deep. That one behind City Hall cost $800,000. So it depends on the volume of wastewater that you're gonna need, and it also depends on the distance that you're gonna have to run those gravity lines. Because you have to run that gravity line at an angle, and it depends on how deep you go. You calculate it sort of backwards, bottom of the wet well until it runs out of ground, because it's gonna come up at an angle. That's the distance. Depending on where you put it, or where it is placed, if you place it sort of halfway between here and County Road 99, and then you simply pump it back, you probably can cover all of that area with one lift station. The question is the volume then. How big is the lift station? Because if you put a lift station the size of a trash can, you're not going to carry very much. If it's as big as that one, you might be able to. So it depends on depth and the size as to the cost of it. And then the other part of that is, like I said, you have to have the connections in the plant in order to treat it. And hopefully we're going to get that soon. So those are just some of the things that we're working on. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Good evening. First, let me say I really appreciated the opportunity to attend. Quite an extensive amount of information was shared over those 2 days, so I apologize in advance for any redundancy, preaching to the choir. But it started off with them giving us an update on the status of the Texas economy. And the good thing about it is the Texas economy has been doing well and is projected to continue doing well. I was a little shocked to find that, we had the 9th largest economy in the world. So that if we were a nation, we would actually be number 9. So that's quite interesting to me. A GDP of $2 trillion. Exports, I think they told us in 2020 there were exports of more than $250 billion just from the state of Texas. And they were sharing that information to let us know that because the overall economy is doing well, it projects well for our local municipalities. Another thing that was shared in terms of development, they were sharing that the EDCs that are part of the local government incentives, as in our case, should look to work to not only recruit new businesses, but retention for those businesses that currently exist. So here's some of the redundancy. Some of the local government incentives that we covered and that I have extensive materials on at home were property tax abatements, which I know everyone's familiar with, sales tax rebates, Chapter 380, the 381 grants, public improvement districts, tax increment financing, economic development corporations, EDCs, and the municipal development districts. One of the other things that there were really not a lot of new things as far as 380 agreements, other than that 2021 would enact a registry so that, you know, the 380 agreements would be on file with the state comptroller, so anyone that wanted to look them up could do it. But they were having a few problems implementing that, so I guess it's still in the works, at least as of that date in November. Something that drew a lot of attention was the Texas Comptroller's Rule 3.334, because one of their concerns during the pandemic was that there were going to be a lot of budget shortfalls, that the economy would be tanked. But what they found is that due to online sales, online retail, it actually increased. And so that Rule 3.334 was not very popular, because rather than the seller being the community where the seller is located being sourced the sales tax revenue, it would be the community where the buyer is located. And so there have been a number of lawsuits filed, and so there's an injunction right now. So it was supposed to go into effect October 1st of 2021. Right now, the injunction has it held up until the trial takes place May of 2022. So, but in line with that, for the EDC, as far as recruitment and retention, they showed us ways where big box retails are now using flexible retail styles. So instead of all the square footage being allotted to just products, they're incorporating the online, the apps, which we've all experienced. So you can come and pick up, you can get it delivered. During the pandemic, probably all of us utilized that. So I thought that was interesting as far as in our line of recruiting and retaining. They also spoke about how EDCs could be instrumental in helping small businesses, those that want to, that are new startups, making sure that they have the right education and information, capitalization, because we know most businesses fail because of undercapitalization. So there are a number of programs in place. We have the Small Business Administration, which has the SBDC, Small Business Development Centers. So not only can they help them write up a viable business plan, but they can provide mentors, senior executive mentors who are in that particular industry to walk alongside them as they're establishing the business, but also giving them access to funding resources. So there are Title VII, Title VIII loans that are available where fees, the interest rates are low, where the fees are waived. And in the case of certain hubs or historically underutilized businesses, veterans, women, minorities, there are express loans that, for instance, veterans, that could be actually guaranteed by the federal government. So like with express loans for veterans, up to $300,000 for a business that's 51% veteran-owned. If their business acumen or their business credit doesn't allow them to qualify for a loan, there's microloans for up to $50,000. So just, they were trying to show us different modes and methods to stimulate and to grow our economies. Yes, I can email the links. They didn't provide hard copies. They were being environmentally friendly. Half of them didn't have handouts, unfortunately, but for those that did, there's a link to where, and I checked today, they're still there. So I guess.
Get some of those links out on y'all's webpage,
Oh, sure.
trying to direct small business owners where to go.
Oh, excellent.
That might not be something for y'all as a project, but definitely a resource
Okay.
that they could reach out to.
Well, definitely, definitely. I don't know how much more you want me to delve in. Like I said, that Baptist preacher can get me in trouble, so you have to hit the gavel. But it was, the overall experience was great. There were public servants from all over the state, and surprisingly, most of them were smaller municipalities, which was great. So it afforded an opportunity to network. We had round-robin round tables where we discussed things that were happening in our communities, how they may relate. So it was an overall, and I have all the phone numbers and email addresses, which was helpful. And of course, when they found out I worked for the VA, most of the calls were coming my way for their local veterans. But in fact, right, exactly. I ended up doing an outreach in Cleveland, Cleveland, Texas, because of that. But anyway, it was, I think it was money well spent, very appreciative. I'm still studying the materials, but thank God that we have professionals on the city staff who can actually interpret and apply most of these regulations that we went over.
Well, Ed, thank you very much. That was a wealth of information. I think that the websites would help immensely talk.
But I'll definitely send those over.
Okay, well, thank you for that update. Right now, C, discussions, update on a future meeting schedule.
So right now, we kind of have y'all set as pretty much a quarterly type meeting with the new year. I just wanted to make sure that unless a project comes before y'all where we have to meet sooner, if that schedule is still working with everybody, or if you guys want to move up to more meetings. This next meeting, there will be a meeting possibly next month, because you do have some board members. So Chad has dropped off the board. He lives outside the city limits, further than the distance is allowed to maintain his position on the board. He now lives in Santa Fe. So you do have that vacancy. And then Angela and Lorraine, both of their terms are up. They both submitted an application that city council will be taking action on at the next council meeting. So one brand new person for sure, and then possibly two reappointments. We don't, depending on y'all, if you want to have the meeting in March, we can swear them in during the meeting. You don't have to have a meeting for me to swear them in. I can swear them in outside of the meeting, and then we can pick up in, in May, and as the project comes up. So totally up to y'all. Just wanted to put that out there so y'all could decide what you wanted to do meeting-wise.
I have a comment. I think we should meet because if we get the new person in, I think we have to reorganize and swear in our new leadership and our new president and the VP, whoever gets nominated at that time. And then possibly, since it's right at the beginning of the year, discuss some goals just for the year. In March, so, we're swearing in new people. How are things going? An update from the city would be great to have, Kyle tell us, because it's easier, like what the city's up to in terms of where we're at fund-wise, and then we can kind of decide moving forward where our goals lie. That would be my suggestion. Yes, no, maybe?
I'm good.
So we'll definitely have a meeting in March, and then once we have that meeting, depending on y'all's conversations, you guys can decide if you want to meet again in April or if you want to meet later. Do we have a date for March? It's gonna be the same, second Wednesday in March, which is going to be March the 9th.
No, it's not. Believe me, I checked. Because we're going out of state, so it's not that week. We're driving, though, we're not flying. Road trip.
That is a long road, yeah.
consent agenda. All consent, do I need to read it? No. Okay. A, receive, consider the minutes to date. Do I have a, excuse me?
Make one motion for the whole, so if you guys are reviewing your packet, you've got the finance, information in there, as well as the minutes from the last meeting. If you guys can, that first page with the highlights, that's just showing you, that was the update that your loan is paid off. So that's what that was. Behind that are the minutes and the financials. If you guys can review those, and then if you're ready for a motion on that, once you review it, you can make one motion that'll approve the whole consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll-
Okay, we have a motion and second, so moved. Oh, excuse me, can we get a, I'm sorry. Can we get a vote? Hands, right? Mhm. All in favor? Aye. And next, the treasurer's report today. Well, I'm sorry, everything was done. I'm sounding like. Now we have motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to
I'll second.